can be used in various fields like construction, military operation, or any other things, even entertainment. And this is its test for robustness, how it can operate even when there are physical problems. Yeah, but I still managed to do the test and Alright, so that's our first clip. Yay or nay? Do you like the content? Do you like the improvements? Such advancements? And you know, it's really interesting to see your faces. How do you react to this stuff? It is really interesting. Anyone have a short comment about this video?
I think the robot dance better than Eddie.
Damn.
Hey, Eddie, you we'll set up a stage to prove your superiority over robots. All right. So next clip. Next clip is.
Hey, Chanyo, there's like a gray box on top of the screen. Can you?
Oh, sorry. Is this better?
Much better.
All right. Yeah. So this next clip is about Japanese policy called Society 5.0. Recently, Japanese government have announced active application of the fourth industrial revolution technology in the society, and it's their promotional video.
In Japan, innovation has been transforming our society, in which people can extend human ability. For example, a technology which improves our performance. With new wearable interfaces which analyze wearers' movement using AI and accumulate the techniques of great performers as electrical stimuli, wearers may play like great performers due to the stimuli sent by interfaces to wearers' muscles. Telexistence technology realizes our own avatar robots in practical use, enabling us to see, hear, and feel beyond time and distance as though we were there. Assistive suits, which read wearers' wills by receiving biological signals sent from the brain to the muscles, support users' heavy lifting work. The suits reduce the user's burden and let us handle heavy work much more safely and comfortably.
ここはちょっと未来の日本のとある町。時間ぴったり。IoT や AI 技術によって叶えられるソサエティ 5.0 の社会です。
おはよう。朝ごはん何にしようかな。
スムージーはいかがですか？
いいね。
そろそろお出かけの時間です。
よっ。コロッケパンとミックスサンドいつものお店でお願い。
注文しておきます。
昨日から血圧が高いみたいですが。
あら、そう？おばあちゃん行ってきます。いってらっしゃい。おはようございます。
おはよう。はい、これ。
ありがとう。
あっぶねえ、間に合った。
先輩。
ああ、お前も乗るとこ？
未来が楽しみでしょ。
Right, that's our second clip. Yay or nay? What's your thoughts?
Her future looks exciting with that guy.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's the only line in this video. You cannot get a girlfriend if you have robots.
Is it my computer or is this gray box?
It's I see the gray box too on the top and on the side.
Sorry, it's because of the the thumbnails of the faces.
Oh, okay.
저작권? 아.
I was just wanted to watch your faces, what your responses to the video.
I like, so my reaction to this, I don't know if it's a yay or nay, but it's probably both. Like it seems like there's some really cool stuff that could help society to the extent that the technology is leveraged correctly. So like efficiency from getting drone packages that use biometrics to identify the recipient, or at a senior assisted living home where like a nurse can help a heavier person and pick them up. But like some of the other stuff, I immediately just imagine like Terminator robots.
Oh yeah,
This is already happening.
It is.
It is out there. So I don't know, it's gonna happen sooner or later, and I imagine pretty soon too. Yeah,
especially with the coronavirus outbreak, this policies and this kind of technologies really getting more attention to minimize the direct physical context from in the sake of prevention.
Yep. So yay.
All right. So the next clip. Oh, sorry. I'll just play it.
In a dimly lit temple, worshippers gather to listen to ancient Buddhist teachings, delivered by a robot. The robot introduces itself as the Buddhist goddess of mercy. According to faith, this deity can appear in any form. The robotic preacher is known as Mindar. It's the brainchild of temple steward Tensho Goto, who's hoping to bring worshippers closer to the divine.
Many Buddhist statues have been made, but they were all just Buddhist images, standing or sitting figures. I wanted to create a Buddhist statue which can speak, make eye contact, and answer questions so that people can feel closer to it.
Temple officials say Mindar has proven a hit with the crowds, despite initial skepticism.
So that's a funeral. All right. So what do you think?
This actually reminds me of a fun little thought I had on when I was little, or when I was in college. I was very interested in seeing if there was some physical connection between, like a real physical measurement I could make to connect the spiritual reality to us, or to the physical world. And I mean, this kind of technology would be very far out if it exists, but how the spiritual realm will manifest itself has evolved over not evolved, it has stayed the same. It's always Genesis 3 in some way, but as the monk stated, we built idols, and now they're building a different kind of idol, which is a robot. And the question is, how will the spiritual world influence that, what the robot says or what it does? And if, as maybe if the world starts understanding the spiritual science between how you can, I don't know, maybe take advantage of randomness or some thing that humans understand they don't have control of, and they say this is the voice of divine beings or whatever, and use that to, I guess, make their own sermons. I imagine that is something humans are going to try to achieve or find at some point, and this is a great example of that.
Yeah, I think it's really evident that we humans are trying to be God. I think that was what we've been talking about in the past 2 weeks, and like we're now intruding the boundary of God, of giving spirituality to something. I think before we were trying to like make our lives better, more comfortable, but then only God can breathe spirit into something. For instance, us, like human beings.
Amen.
But now just looking at these like people who make robots, we're just like making the robots to give sermon and like go over the funeral and having them become the messenger and stuff like that. We're just basically believing that we can make a robot that has a spirit and that can connect us to the spiritual world. I think that's like that kind of stupidity of a human being still, like, it's just like so evidently shown. Like we were trying to be God. Yeah, that was kind of shocking to me.
I actually I have a slightly different point of view. I think when I saw that, I see human nature of you know how when God created us, He created us to be like a worshiper of God, and with our with that we are born with something that's in us that naturally wanna find a being greater than us and worship that being. That's why, you know, Pastor, we always talk about like dogs, they can't worship because they don't have spirit. We do, and we want to worship something. And the fact that I think they put that robot, I think robot is not the focus. The focus is something that's greater than themselves. So more knowledge, for example, or, you know, like the lecture I cover with AI. It's basically like that all-knowing kind of power in a different wrapper. You know, like you can be in a robot or you can be in a box or whatever. I think we just want to like, or people who created that is actually longing to worship something because they realize they're powerless. And this is one of the many that they ended up. That's kind of like my take on this. It's because they don't know God and they have to make something. I don't know if
I mean, you guys are speaking valid points, and well, as you know, I'm not a technician. I'm a psychologist. Well, student technically, but when I was studying the materials, the point that I was really fascinated is how do you guys feel about this? How do you guys think about this? Because look at from this point. When I showed your first two videos, you guys were like smiling, laughing. I mean, yeah, that's fun, or yeah, that's nice. And when it comes to the third video, nobody laughed, nobody smiled, and everyone's just making serious faces. Very fascinated faces. And the third thing is, another thing is, we have to think about what's the main difference of we watching Pastor Yu's message on the video between Pastor Yu's message played in the robot sermon. In the sermon robot, each robot.
Yeah, I agree on that point. I feel like the robot, it's just, to use David's terminology, it's a different wrapper. And so throughout history, you've seen idols. They started off as like wood, and stone, and then there were golden calves, and now they're plastic and synthetic rubber with a computer chip behind them. So like the third video was actually it was not as I guess shocking to me. It caused me to say wow, but the reason why it's not as shocking is I feel like when Christians look at that, we'll say, wow, that's kind of where the world is headed. And when the rest of the world that doesn't have the gospel, but they're not Buddhists, when they look at that too, they're just like, yeah, those people are crazy. I think what is probably the scariest is kind of going back to what Kite said. These things that are packaged in the form of efficiency, but it goes back to actually something that Glow wrote this past week on this hidden ideology, the hidden messages, and the things that underpin these technologies. I feel like the third one was just so shocking and blatant. It's easier to disregard. I feel like there are other things that are more incipient and much more hidden, which are harder to like discover.
All right. So let's continue discussion. Sorry. So the point that you have mentioned, the package that was the most fascinating thing we thought we had when we were studying this thing. So basically, when you talk about the robots, it consists of the three parts: the sensors, which can read the data from the environment; the processor, that processes the data and makes a decision; and the actuator, the part that actually makes the interaction with the world, with the environment. And actually, when we think about as you know, robots are not a new technology. Drones are not new technology, such as and also IoT. These things have been living with us for decades already. Compared to blockchain or AI or big data, it seems nothing new. But the point that it has packages, the sensors and the actuator, really messes with our perception and really messes with our feelings. As you see, that's basically how the robots are interacting with the environments right now, current robots. And this parts have been existing for decades, but the processor part, which has been enhanced and upgraded by the AI, big data, blockchain, and any other technology. That's what's making the robotics technology to be one of the main locomotives for the fourth industrial revolution. And when it comes to classification for robots, there's so many types of classifying. One of the things is by the domain of application, there are industrial robots which are involved in like producing goods or fixing or molding and so on. And also there are non-industrial, assistive, which works for the benefit of the human contact. Non-social, such as like wearable robots, robotic prosthetics, or social robots that helps us emotional medical therapy or the actual services, and also like non-assistive robots. That's kind of a vague thing, but basically it means that it doesn't require direct human contact, and sometimes it cannot work for the human benefit. So like exploration, military uses, and so on. Another classification is by the usage. Some robots are multi-purpose, which means that it can be used for various things, and some robots are specialized, like we have our vacuum cleaners, like Roomba or any other things. I guess some of you guys have those things. And also most of the drones are also dedicated or specialized usage because they have actuator which is built in their body, which is corresponding to only specific jobs. Another classification is by their appearance. So automatons are basically like toys. They just process a simple task. They don't have to resemble human being or any other animals. And there are robots which we typically talk about, which resemble some kind of living thing. And there's a humanoid that somewhat resembles human, has a human body, but doesn't look like human. And there are androids. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, there are androids which basically are built to resemble human. And when we are building androids, one of the rules is that to build a soft body. So they're mostly covered in silicone or rubber or any other materials that are not metal. Right, next point. But when it comes to limitation, currently robot bodies are stiff, hard, and heavy, inefficient, so they cannot fully imitate human movements. And human movements are more efficient than you think. Really efficient. For example, when we want to get something out from a hole, we can just put in our arm and pull it out, right? Because our arms are soft enough to adjust to any kind of, well, to most kind of spaces. But when it comes to the robots, it has to calculate if their arm, which cannot be transformed in any other way, will fit into that hole, and if their fingers are able to move when their other parts are stuck in the hole. So that's currently the biggest limitation for the robotics right now. And that's why the scientists are working on building soft robots, which can adjust.
On this point, I know like something that's a limitation, it depends on who's speaking. It's probably a limitation for somebody that wants to create an android to meet like an internal need versus like, you know, General Motors that just wants to build cars with robots.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Where do you kind of see like things skewing? Is it what's driving the desire for these androids? I feel like if we just had a bunch of robots that were building and delivering stuff, that'd be okay. But why this move towards like replicating humans?
That's the point we're going to talk about later. In the further slides. But shortly, there are very diverse reasons for that. And one of the reasons is that, as I have mentioned, humans are actually more efficient than you think. Humans are way more efficient than you think. Humans are very versatile, very multi-purpose. And also because our previous data of the actions and industry are based on the human body, that's way more easier for us to make the replica of the human body when we think about replacement of our labor. So that's one of the reasons. Drones, well, they're basically robots without limbs or limited autonomy. Yeah, I saw your faces. Anyways, it's not a new thing, right? Maybe some of your friends have it, maybe some of you guys have it. And IoT, when the machine-to-machine technology, machine-to-machine network interacts with human-to-machine network. We can see that everywhere, from wearable devices or RFID chips or like GPS, Easy Pass, or CCTVs, or any other like surveillance stuffs and so on. Those are not new things. But so why does that matter? Because robots and drones, with the IoT technology, with the network, they can be used for extending the human potential. If you think about the whole other industrial revolutions, the point was that to achieve something that one person cannot. By the division of the labor, as we have talked about in the first introduction lecture, division of the labor, even though it killed the creativity, but it has enhanced efficiency and productivity way much that we can get way more than one person can produce. And that's the point of the next industrial technology, industrial revolution, to extend our potential even more farther. So to integrate physical and the cyber worlds into one world, even though it's already being we're on the stage of that, and we see how cyber world really affects our physical world in nowadays. But as we have the drones, we have the robots, they will be able to act as our additional limbs, act as our additional body that is directly connected to cyber world. So basically removing the boundary between the two worlds. That's the point of why we're looking at robotics. And that's why there's a new term called hyperconnectivity, of state of being connected beyond the physical body. And what it really gives as well, we have talked about it, empowerment of human body connection. Just an example of it. So this is an orchard using drones to manage every tree and checking the harvest by its camera and infrared visions. In this way, farms can boost their productivity without the involvement of the human labor, just by one person. So that's how one person can become powerful with the assistance of the robots and AI. And also, it extends our senses to beyond the point that traditionally we have thought. If, for example, there were some lawsuits between the Roomba producing corporations and clients, because basically they're swiping the floors of your house and they know your house, what do you put there or what do you put in somewhere. And basically they're just gathering data that has been overlooked until now. The companies that produce the Roomba actually have the data of all houses they are working with. They know the behavioral patterns of the residents in that house, because you guys leave traits. Robot vacuum cleaners will clean the specific places on a routine base, so they will be able to know what you're doing in a specific time way more accurate than any other resident in your house. And also wearable devices or the drones that you have, they're just, as I said earlier, getting the data of our bodies, of our life, from the point that nobody still have thought about.
Can I jump in? Sorry,
yeah.
Real quick, just to add some more points to Chanyong's topic. So you know how I talked about there are a lot of different types of data, and like there are transactions, there are web activities, and one of these things, the things that you saw in the picture, there are sensor data, and what they're doing is they're simultaneously sending those data into the cloud or data center, simultaneously being processed. That's how they're enabling all these devices to make different decisions. And those latency has been like very, very, like it's getting smaller and smaller now. And therefore the process is very fast. They can make decision faster. That makes them more efficient. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The processors are getting smaller, drones are getting smaller, and they are built to form an instant network between them. So we just don't know what kind of data will be driven out from that kind of advancements later. Right. So the next point. And of course, it brings, because it has the physical body, because the point that it has a physical body. The points we have been making are made in the previous lectures, but the fact that it has a physical body to carry on makes it more special. For example, well, delivery apps, we're all using it, but it has been helping the people with disabilities who cannot, for example, deaf people or speech impaired people, to deliver food much easier, and also like face talks and so on. But it also has the drawbacks of some, for example, the phone anxiety that some of our peers are actually suffering from. There are a lot of people who are avoiding direct physical contact and preferring just to send another text or just to send another email rather than talking directly to the person. And maybe that will make us to pay extra price for human interaction. Maybe. Like, there are going to be cafes with robo-baristas and there will be cafes with human baristas, and that's going to be your preference, but maybe there are going to be difference in the service, difference in price, only because it's human involved or robot involved. All right. And the next thing is that because of the physical security and cybersecurity are becoming just more important. Cybersecurity is important right now because, well, we had instances with Xiaomi phones that has a backdoor system to send our data to China, or some smart homes are being hacked and they cannot control their room temperature unless they pay to the hacker. But think about it. You have a housekeeping robot. It got hacked and it's attacking you. That's a completely different level of security problems. Well, some say that's what marriage is, but anyways. But the main point of that thing is that our digital self is becoming as important as our physical self. Our avatar in the digital world is not just some kind of cute representation of ourselves, but it's becoming integrated into our body. So we don't know what kind of consequences will be done in our physical world for the deeds you have done in the cyber world. There's a strange example recently in Korea. So this is a congressman candidate, Ryu Ho-jung of the Justice Party. And she has been accused currently of disqualification because she had shared her account of League of Legends to boost her rank. Because first of all, that's punishable by law. But secondly, her career actually began from the League of Legends. Because she was a high ranker, she was able to become president of the game club in college. Because of that career, she was able to enter a gaming company, and because of that career, she was able to work in a labor union, and because of that career, she is currently a congressman candidate. But as it was proved that she actually boosted her account, well, that means paid other people to play in her account to raise the rank of her account. Now it's under the question if she is qualified as a candidate. This kind of questions were things, but the things that we have never thought about before, like a decade ago, I guess. Yeah, that's what I think when we say that digital self means as important as physical self. All right, but there are some controversy points. For example, we add unnecessary human-like features to the devices. So this is a robot called Meme in Japan. She's built according to the standard body features of a Japanese female, and that was her first demonstration in the public. And this is Asimo, as you know, as may heard, which is built according to the body features of a human male, and that's his demonstration. Even though we think that robots are genderless, but we kind of apply our stereotypes to the robots as well. Because she's a female robot, she has to stand upright for better posture. Because it's a male robot, it's okay to squat down a little, unless if it's stable, if it's moves correctly. That's an interesting phenomenon. Another thing is that that's the point that I was really wanted to talk about with you guys. The attachment point. When we see the faces made by robots, when we see from the first video as like when we like abuse the robot, does that really matter? These robots cannot feel, they don't have any kind of emotions or their intention. They're just doing the things that are programmed in that way, and we just perceive them as a living thing. That's really going to make a lot of problems, well, as we have seen in a lot of movies, but that's going to raise a lot of questions from inefficiency to even a real dire situation. For example, what if soldier gets attached to mine-removing robot and tries to save it in the warfield? What if a person gets attached to a pet robot and thinks itself as a family member? Even though robots cannot do anything by its own free will, but we just assume because it has a life movement, a lifelike movement. So yeah, the questions that we want to ask when it comes to robotics, is how much we want our devices to be autonomous and how much we want our devices to be human-like. And when I was thinking about the questions, the question that Addie has asked popped eventually. Why do we want our devices to be human-like? And of course, as we have talked before, Genesis 1:26, we were built according to God's image, and we had the distorted instinct of desire to become like God. And well, to the next point is that it doesn't matter if AI is going to rule over us or if we're going to rule over AI, but the point that we're going to be constantly connected to the AI, to the machines, that's the point that I think is really deserves our attention, because we're connected to the things that works and watches over us 24 hours without resting. And think about it, 24 hours without resting, that's featured for what? For God and Satan. So my opinion is that what Satan is trying to imitate is a false God. That's the point why it's trying to move the technology to build a physical body. Why the package matters is that because we can see the thing and we can interact with it. And think about it, future society will be built in this way. Everyone is connected to AI and forming a society centered by AI, right? And doesn't this resemble something? Doesn't this structure resemble something? Doesn't this? think about the tabernacle. Basically, all tribes are centered around the tabernacle, and there are Levites, specific tribe that serves that is specialized in serving God. We have specific professions that is specialized in working with AI, and that's my thought about why Satan is forcing the people to advance technology in this way. So there's a conclusion. When we think about it really go to back to the basic question: what is human? Then who is God? What is church? And how am I connected to the God, to the people in the church? All right, that's all of my presentation, and thank you for listening. I really appreciate that you have listened.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I think that you had that one slide where it was like God on one side. Maybe it's like 3 or 4 slides back. Can you go back to it real quick?
Oh yeah, sure.
There you go. That one right there. So you have God on one side, and then on the other side, you equated basically anything that has to do with efficiency, technology, advancement, as being aligned with Satan. I want to challenge that point, and I want to get a response from you. Like, we just read it in today. Paul took a ship as he was going to Rome. They didn't say that the ship was a technological innovation with a compass that Satan had created and decided to walk there. So, like, there's a reason why we're using a computer right now. There's a reason why we drive cars. To put everything in the bucket of false gods, is there a way that we could recreate that? Is there a way that a remnant could look at your presentation on robotics and say, okay, I see that this is the flow, but maybe we can use this technology to do something else?
I want to add to Eddie's point. Yeah, I want to add to Eddie's point because I think this is how do you say, like, we, instead of like, okay, acknowledging that this technology is a false imitation of God, for us, is there any way that we can recreate or leverage the existing technology, so that it doesn't become like that? And ultimately, we are living in, these technology. I'm just wondering, what's your point of view on recreation?
I'm really pro about it, and I really appreciate that you have mentioned the point. I actually, I just forgot to talk about that point. The point is that the advancement of the technology, not the advancement of the technology itself, but the fact that we are connected to it, fact that we are becoming dependent of it, and it depends on. I guess it depends on where do you really put your thoughts, put your mind when in this matter. I mean, can I talk in Korean for a second? Like, can I?
Yeah.
그러니까 우리가 이런 기술들이 이제 생기면서 우리 몸이나 아니면 우리의 이제 신체가 확장이 되는 건데, 그러면서 우리가 능력이 더.
I can translate for easy, just if that's okay. If you can just speak in like sentences, like chopped sentences, I can try.
그러니까 가장 메인 포인트는 이제 우리의 능력이 확장이 되는 거잖아요.
So the main point of all this is that our abilities are enhanced.
근데 문제는 우리가 이 로봇한테 인간적인 부분을 부여하는 것처럼 우리가 우리 생각에 잡혀버려가지고 그 능력을 다른 방향으로 쓸 수 있다는 거는 항상 그 생각을 하고 있어야 되는 거죠.
So my point, the main point of my lecture is that we can use the human stereotypes and biases in a way, in using the robotics in a way that's misleading or false.
그래서 I really believe that recreation is possible and it's planned for us. And I don't have examples right now, but I just wanted to focus on the point that we want to be cautious about.
So I think that's important because I think instead of putting the entire responsibility of recreating on Chanyoung, I think this is like discussion time is for us, like the opportunity for all of us to talk about and recreate. I think Chanyoung's, like the lecturer's responsibility is to show the flow, like what the technology is and where it's going. So if anyone has any opinion on how we can use this to recreate, I think that'd be great.
I have an idea. Like, I know our church is starting up Sunday rides. There's a YBAWM member at RCA, about 4 or 5 months back. He actually came up with a pretty good idea for a missions-oriented business. He said, hey, whenever there's an RCA or a business conference, everybody flies into the airport at different times, and we have to all coordinate our own rides, and everybody pays $40 to take an Uber by themselves. Why don't we coordinate that and rent out a bus or something like that? But I almost feel like whether it's rides for our church or whether it's rides for various folks attending conferences, automating that aspect of it, where there's a robotic vehicle that can link into folks' schedules and basically help us save on costs there. That's a dollar saved there. It can be $1 of offering or missions. But yeah, I think that's absolutely one way that we could potentially recreate that.
Speaking of that, that reminded me of a silly thought that I had while preparing this. You guys know the recent news about the Crystal Church, right? The drive-in service? So there was a church in I forgot which state, but because of the coronavirus outbreak, they decided to, wait a minute, let me show you the picture of it. They decided to make a drive-in service.
I don't think we can see the
sorry,
the screen other than the presentation.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's great.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I think, I appreciate it. I was just wondering if you have any already ideas about recreation. I'm not a expert on robotics, but I think there are just countless ways that we can use to make some sort of program but I think ultimately those type of things are helping us to do things more efficiently and instead of creating a brand new thing, I want to open up discussion to because robots are there already, AIs are there already, everything is there already. Is there any way we can just use without having to, have someone to build from ground up, something like that? I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Actually, that brings about the point that I wanted to mention. So, as you have just seen the picture, there are driving services, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the future, we're going to have the robots for our telepresence to be there when we cannot be physically. So think about this situation. One of the congregation gets sick, but he really wants to get to the worship, so he sends his robot to the church. And because he wants more of a life experience, like he's at the church. But how would that affect other congregations? If all congregations are just there in their virtual bodies or in their digital bodies, would that be okay with us? That's a silly question I had while we were preparing this.
Okay. Actually, I have another opinion. 기태가 그 통역해줄 수 있어?
예.
그러니까 정말 이런 4차 산업과 기술들이 지금 많이 발전하고 있잖아요.
So through the fourth industrial revolution, technologies are advancing so quickly.
근데 이제 확실히 아까 찬영이가 얘기한 것처럼 그 같은 그 밸런스가 좀 더 많이 필요하다라는 게 느껴지는 게.
So as Chanyoung has mentioned, I think there must be a balance.
사실 뭐 이제 4차 산업으로 인해 진짜 로봇이 저희가 당장 이번 주 주일에도 청소하러 가는데 만약에 로봇이 있으면 로봇이 다 청소할 수 있잖아요, 교회 같은 것도.
So we have a church, but if we have a service, online service, but then this Sunday we're going to be cleaning, and then if we have a robot, then the robot can just clean for us.
물론 그러면은 너무나 편하고 사실 좋은 면도 확실히 많잖아요.
Then I think it's very convenient and it's very comfortable. So there are many good sides to it.
근데 때로는 진짜 우리가 몸을 움직여서 행동함으로 마음에 담기는 게 더 큰 게 많을 때도 많은 것 같아요.
But sometimes it is very important for us to move our physical body and have our hearts in it.
그래서 모이는 것도 물론 지금 시국에는 그렇지만 왜 그래도 모여야 되면 더 내가 직접 실제적으로 보고 이렇게 듣고 하는 이런 릴레이션십 속에서 좀 더 마음을 더 담을 수 있게 되는 것도 있는 것 같아요.
And therefore, like as we gather physically, I think we can more easily put our hearts to our gatherings and our interactions.
그래서 이번에 사실 저도 드라이브 지금 라이드를 해주고 있거든요, 교회에서.
So at church, I'm giving rides these days.
근데 확실히 이게 같이 만나서 또 얘기하고 그런 시간들이 저한테는 또 되게 은혜가 되는 시간이거든요.
So whenever people get in my car and I have conversations with them, like that's the time when I receive a lot of grace.
그래서 참 이게 그 좀 딜레마인 것 같긴 해요. 뭔가 편하게 하고 빠르게 할 수 있는 것들도 있지만 한편으로는 그러니까 인간이 기계가 되면 안 된다는 생각이 많이 들어요. 기계적으로 하는 순간 그걸 다 그 축복들을 놓친다는 생각이 좀 많이 드는 것 같아요.
And that's where the dilemma comes in, because once we human beings become robots, that's when we lose hold of humanly traits that God has given to us.
그래서 기계를 지금 인간으로 만들려고 하고 있는데 우리는 자꾸 기계처럼 뭔가 하려고 하니까 거기서 문제가 오는 것 같다는 생각이 드네요.
So I think the problem starts when like all the machines are trying to be like humans and humans are trying to be machines or robots.
Yeah, I guess that's the point when we start a new paradigm of having another body, having another physical body that we can operate as our own. Like a third limb, third leg, third hand, third eye, or anything that can go beyond our traditional physical body can do. DK, can I ask you any opinions about this matter as well as an expert?
I mean, I wouldn't call myself an expert. I think a lot of this technology is, I've never thought about big data analytics or robotics in the sense of spirituality because I find it very distant from spiritualness. And it's because it's just like what Hyunjin said, it's all of this technology is really to make humans more efficient, and it doesn't. I'm trying to figure out, even when you pose a question of how can we use this technology to help recreate, it's kind of hard. So let's just say, for example, in order for there to be any type of analytics, you need data. And in order for you to get that data, you need to ask people to share their thoughts. The moment you start asking about and have a collection of people's thoughts, now it's no longer what God is thinking, it's more of what people are thinking. And once you have a collection of that data, now you pose the question of how are you going to use it? Are you going, like pastors can probably use that to kind of get a sense to see what, if people are in the flow or not. But, you know, then they kind of might be biased and towards leading the congregation into a different direction. Almost like it could be tempting to use that information to manipulate almost. And that gets a little interesting once you start asking about what people's thoughts and opinions are. So as Hyunjin said, I think when it comes to spirituality, like even when that Buddhist robot was preaching, right? I don't think there was any type of spiritualness in there. It's just reciting what someone scripted. I think even as much as that chart that you had a while ago where all this technology is trying to imitate God, I think the one thing that this technology can't imitate is a soul, right? I think even I'm curious to see how even AI is going to be able to explain or understand faith, because at the end of the day, it really is what it is. Like, I mean, going back to that systematic theology class that I was talking about, if you take faith out of the whole picture, everything's very logical, and there's a lot of things that might contradict each other. And AI, which runs off of multiple iterations of calculations from data that's provided, I don't think it's going to be able to really understand what faith is. I don't think an AI is going to be able to just be able to accept that, you know, Jesus is the Christ. And so because of that, I think that there's going to be a separation between that technology and humans when it comes to faith.
To piggyback on that point, I also thought that it's going to be vital to study the theology from this point, because I also had the same question: if it can imitate the soul, if it can imitate the spirituality. But as a matter of fact, it doesn't require to imitate. It just has to fake it, so we get deceived. It just has to show the actions, the faces, the behavior, recite the words that affects our perception. So we will fall and believe that it's kinda being spiritual. In that case, if we don't have the correct knowledge about what God is, what spirit is, we will definitely deceive like those Shincheonji people.
Yeah, and that's no different than a pastor that, you know, doesn't hold on to the gospel and preaches. It's the same. I think that's regardless.
I think for me, as I think about my daughter, and if she were to ever ask me, Daddy, what do you think about like robotics and 4th IR, and should we just not do anything to do with robots and boycott them and not purchase any goods that where robots were used in the process of making them? I would say no. My perspective on this is there are so many different things that God has given us that God has allowed us to create that can be used to block disasters and to save people. But I think it's a human condition, and it's Genesis 3:6-11, which causes humans to take these things and imbue them with the attributes of God. I think that's the core problem. So whether it's a piece of wood or stone or gold, or again, like I said, today, a piece of plastic with hydraulics in it, in and of itself, I think it's okay. But I think when humans take that thing and then again imbue it with the attributes of God and say and try to find meaning in it, or try to find healing in those things, when we know that it's only the gospel, I feel like that's a problem. So for me, I mean, I may be the minority opinion in this room. I may be too humanistic. I think it's important to leverage these types of technologies for efficiency gain. I think the moment that we take it and we worship it, or we try to find solace, we try to find meaning, or anything else, I think that's when behind that object, there's something else. There's a different spirit there, which desires to enslave us. And I think as long as we recognize that, my general thought is, why not use robotics? If I can use robotics for the purpose of the gospel, like Hyunjin said at his church, he's going to use a robot vacuum cleaner to basically clean it up tomorrow. Why not?
I want to add to the point. I think the really important thing here that we're doing is to understand this technology and understand the flow. It's not about saying, oh, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, and this and that. I think understanding the flow is ultimately what matters. And just by building out of Hyunjun's point, I can see a flow of separation. Like with efficiency, it comes separation. Let's say, driverless car, Hyunjun usually drives people, and, you can have forum, and you receive grace, and you grow faith. And like with all the drones and all these more efficient tools happening, I see it will be harder and harder for evangelism to take place. At least, robots, you can, I don't know, but throughout the time, it's when you have that human interaction, that's when God started to work, move people's hearts. And I think with all those stuff happening, humans will be more harder to connect face to face, right? Let's say you go to or you're getting a piece of package from postman, and you guys will say hello and say, how have you been, all those stuff, and now it's drone. So like normally you can evangelize to someone just by that simple interaction, and throughout time those opportunities will reduce, and that, I think that's something that I got from this lecture particularly, is that we'll be more separated, and you'll be harder to evangelize. That's me. I don't know if it makes sense.
How do we combat this? Because, or how do we do we even combat it, or do we just say that's the way it's going and we just kind of watch it happen? Because you're right. I think about like our first YBAWM location was Jay's WeWork, and every morning when we got there early, there was a dude at the door, and Hyunjun evangelized to him. I'd imagine if there was no guy there, if it was a robot, that opportunity wouldn't have taken place. So do we regress? Do we become like the Amish and destroy all this technology and start a revolution to do that, or how do we manage or approach that?
I'd like to bring up two. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, Luke, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, I'm good.
I'd like to bring up two cases that I've imagined up while reading some material. One case is So there's a real estate business that makes a lot of money off of very poor people. Essentially, they get welfare checks, and you rent out the space to them. You just collect the checks, and they can't support their lives because they don't have control. That's where they're poor in the first place, usually. And so there's a business. The one thought that came to me when it comes to machine learning, mostly more like supervised learning style algorithms, is if a poor person who's in poverty would subscribe to an AI or a machine learning program that optimizes their ability to come out of poverty by making all their decisions for them, it essentially becomes, depending on how you look at it, they're going to lean on that program to make their decisions for them, which is essentially what Google and Amazon does based on your behavior. And now I bring this point up after Ed said, how can we combat this? On the flip side, let's say human interaction does decrease. But at the end of it, I think we're ignoring the connectivity that will exist. Will exist at a higher state than just human interaction. This is if the human physical interaction goes down, such that if we, for a very simple example, let's say my church is doing the 3 todays. We do it every day. It works for us. That doesn't necessarily mean it works for everyone else, but it's I don't want to use this term, but statistically a good way to help people stay in the flow every day. It does not have to be exactly 3 todays in that specific way, because that would be religious. But what I'm saying is, if human interaction goes away and you develop this culture, or God starts working, there will be different ways people will see that this works, especially if connectivity is large and almost instantaneous. So I'm not too scared. In fact, not scared. I'm just curious, because at the end of the day, God does the evangelism. Therefore, given that circumstance, it'd be, either he breaks the whole thing down or creates something brand new. And that's what I think of the question, how to combat it. If we find and understand the platform well, and then this is kind of like the discipline equals freedom conversation from a while back. If you discipline yourself to understand the whole physics behind it, then God can use that to, I don't think human interaction will go away, is my last statement, even if the physical reaction goes away. And I don't necessarily think God is limited to physical interaction for his work to take place. If it is, then he will make it happen. But that is my point, that I don't think we're gonna lose it.
So I think I agree with all points, but I think to go back to Eddie's question, should we regress or do we combat it? I think it's, to me, let me know if it's too conservative of an approach, but to me, when Chanyoung said new field of action means new questions, during the lecture, that quite stood out to me. And the world is going to ask different kinds of questions, should we give citizenship to robots, or should we is it okay to give emotion to a robot or stuff like that? But then I think it's important for us to ask the right question. And for us, it's not really about like, oh, like we need to like completely shun the robots, or we should like completely accept the robots. But then we have to just ask the right questions and see what kind of values should we keep. And while keeping that values, how can we use all these technologies in order to, in the age of globalization, how can we use these technologies that even like that God gave us to do the works of evangelism and the mission. So like for me, like obviously, so I just want to share this one verse. I think those questions and the values always come from the word. And as long as we follow the word and what the word says, I think that's the values that we should keep. And while keeping that, how can we create to do the work of evangelism? I think that should be our goal. And I just want to share Hebrews 10:23 and 24. And it says, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as in the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So I think this Bible verse really is like exactly like Chanyoung like put it up there. And like coronavirus and like bunch of like connectivity, like internet and things like that, it's really great. I think not the coronavirus is great, but coronavirus and all kinds of stuff like is going to sort of like block us from meeting together. And it's going to happen. But while we continue to meet together and do the good works and the loving one another, how can we use the robots in order to continue to meet? I think that should be, in my point of view, I think that's the question that we should ask. How can we use this technology to continuously meet and do good works and continue to love together? Yeah, love each other.
Yeah, I love this guy.
그래서 저는 이거 더 통역자.
Oh yeah, I can translate.
그래서 기태 말에 저도 되게 동감했던 게, 그래서 가장 중요한 거는 주와 부가 확실하게 나뉘어져야 되는 것 같다는 생각이 들었어요.
I think that's why I think it's very important for us to really define what is the main thing and also what is sub main to that.
그래서 만약에 내가 정말 편하다고 해가지고 기계가 주가 돼버리면 그건 저희가 빼앗기는 것 같아요. 그 순간에 모든 것을.
So I think if the machines, the robots become the Lord, I think that's when we lose hold of everything.
근데 아까 정말 기태가 말한 대로 결국 가장 중요한 거는 우리의 중심을 가지고서 이제 기계를 이제 부로 사용하는 것, 로봇이나 뭐 빅데이터나 이걸 부로 사용하게 될 때는 그게 전도에 효과가 날 거라는 생각이 들었어요.
So I thought that if we use robots as our servants, I think that's when the effects of evangelism will take place.
그게 이제 창세기 1장 28절에 저희에게 주신 언약이잖아요. 모든 것을 다스리고 정복하는 그게 원래 저희 모습이기 때문에.
So in Genesis 1:27-28, it says, God has given us the authority to rule over and conquer and subdue the world.
그래서 한 가지 지금 예를 들면은 저희가 또 그 지역에서 그 지역 뭐라 해야지 정보들 이런 걸 얻으려고 하잖아요. 어떻게 보면 이것도 빅데이터인 거잖아요.
So in our regions, we're trying to acquire information, and this is also part of big data.
그리고 예를 들면 저희 교회 사람들이 어디 사는지, 어떻게 어디서 살고 있고 어디가 이제 일하는 지역인지를 예를 들면 데이터를 가지고 있다 보면은 현장을 분석하는데도 어떻게 보면 많이 쓰임 받을 수도 있는 거고.
So as we analyze like what kind of workers are in which field and where they're located, and as we analyze these kinds of things, we can use this for the works of evangelism.
그래서 항상 모든 기준이 진짜 전도가 중심이 되어야 되는 것 같아요. 그러면은 그 기계나 이런 로봇들도 어떻게 사용해야 될지가 나오는 것 같아요.
I think the main point, therefore, should be evangelism. And then we can answer the question, how can we use these robots?
Yes.
Amen. Yeah, I really love this time. I really love
Sorry,
this time. Yeah, we're going to help you with that. anyways, continuing from the point that Kita have mentioned, that's the point that I have been continuously thinking about last week. I mean, what if there are going to be extra value for human interaction? As I have showed you with the example of robot barista and human barista, what if, like, because of the emergence of the robots, the necessity for the human interaction lowers down, and we're going to consider human interaction as luxury? Then how can we convince others? How can we make others to physically gather in a place like church or like school and so on?
I feel like one of the videos already gave us the answer. I think Eddie mentioned too, but if there's like an old elder or like a 권사님 who really can't like walk because of their age, but then they still want to worship, they can augment themselves with like all kinds of like robots, and then they, if they can come to worship because of that, I think that'll be, more time of worshiping, which is the reason why we were created. So I think that's one of the ways we can use.
Yeah. But what if like she sends just a robot, just doesn't be there physically? I mean, it's going to really mess up our perception, really. I mean, think about it. Like, you have people who call their dogs, their pets, as like their son or their daughter, right? But that's not because like they gave birth to it, or
So my perspective on that is it's interesting when you look back at that robot, the Buddhist robot. It was still one machine that provided a gathering for humans to come together, and the humans came together because they were worshiping something. And so, do I see that changing where it's one-on-one, or people are so yearning for this type of intimacy that they go after the robots and want to have a robot girlfriend and go down that route? I think possibly, but I like Kita brought up a good point, and I think that's the underlying point, which is we have to ask the right questions. We have to look through things through the right lens. I think even if that were to come, what it shows is the same way that I don't have a robot now, but before I knew the gospel, I listened to myself. I listened to the voice inside me that told me what I should do and how I should live. And again, behind that, there was another spirit. I think when there's a robot, it's the same thing. It provides that intimacy, it provides that assurance, and possibly answers to questions that I might have. But behind that is a different ideology. Again, going back to Glow's article, a hidden ideology, a hidden spirit. And so I feel like the work of the evangelist is still there. It's to tell people that spiritual reality. It's to relate to them that this robot that you're interfacing with is not the actual answer, but that it's a gospel. For me, I think, as Kite said, over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we should think about how we can recreate this aspect of the fourth industrial revolution. We utilize certain aspects of this technology. Yes, the baseline, and I think we've done it today, is to understand its potential and its potential for good and for abuse. But if we can figure out how to actually leverage it, I think that could be interesting.
Definitely.
Share something, or just a thought that I had. I felt like something that resonates with what everyone said is like how, like, regardless of what we think about like the new technologies, like we're going to adapt and use it, and like many were saying, there will be many ways to use it for like evangelism. But I think like the real fight will be like about whether we'll use it or be used by it. Like phones, we use it, but so many times like we're used by it. Like it rules our time, our attention. It like instead of using it, we are used by it. And I think like in the coming age, like will really determine those who will use it and those who will be used by it is whether like those who will be able to use technology are those who know themselves and know God and know like each role. Well, because like if humans think they can like cross the boundary between like God, like humans and God, then I feel like and if humans think they can be God, at any time they can think that robots can be human or robots can replace human. And I feel like those who know themselves, those who know God, can correctly understand the role of robots and use them instead of people who don't. They'll be very confused at even the role of robots or the role that they play. But I think like going back to the start of the course too, there will be pros and cons for the coming age. Like things will be lost, but also things will be gained. Just as today we enjoy things that previous generations haven't, and we've lost a lot that previous generations have had. But like the most important thing to not lose is like worship, and the most important thing to gain is our souls. And then I think regardless of the changes to come, we will know like what God's will is through all of that. But I think I'm just repeating what everyone said. So.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, I just got sorry, just to add something up real quick. I just remember the case where it's being used for good things. For example, there are robots that accompany, basically they're companion robots for mentally challenged children. Because of their special needs, human interaction is very limited, and their human companions are getting tired, so they cannot help them as much as they can. So robot companions are good replacements for such cases. Yeah, I mean there should be more ways to recreate.
So I want to pose a question. I don't know if it's going to throw this, I guess, discussion off course, but what are your guys' thoughts and opinions if there is a robot, right? So what I'm trying, the scenario that I'm trying to present is the robots with AI are going to be able to quote unquote connect with people better in the future because they're going to have a collection of data on emotions, how to read people, how to give the right responses. If you are able to have a robot that can understand that and also provide the way of salvation, in your opinions, does that really feel the gospel is involved, or is that just pure manipulation?
Oh, so wait, so if like the robot who can analyze emotions well can evangelize, is that something that is desirable? Was that your question?
Yeah, so I mean that's like the positive aspect that I'm trying to see of it, right?
Yeah.
If a robot knows the path of salvation, but it also knows how to read people's emotions and responses, right? Because I feel like in the future people might actually start talking to robots for counseling.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If that robot provides the way of salvation, is that gospel-centered or is that manipulation?
That's a good question. Wow.
That is an interesting question. It goes back again.
Jay actually asked the same question last week. Jay, I don't know if you have a perspective on that.
Oh yeah, right. Jay, he mentioned about that.
Yeah, I think just the I think it was the first course we had. Only God knows, God gives life, and but the question is turned around as what if the robot shares the gospel, be able to read someone's emotion and what the person is going through, can the robot give the right path to the salvation and give salvation? It's a good question because the person hears it and hears about the gospel, but ultimately what differentiates between robots and us is the prayer. And so I actually had the same thing, if we were able to see things with AR, VR, people's emotions, we could be we could give them the right message or whatnot. But at the same time, I just like Glo mentioned and everyone else mentioned, as a person who prays, we have to be dependent on the prayer, and we have to be dependent on the word and the schedule of the word. And you'll be able to see God attaches people to you and open up the door of the way of salvation. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not, yes, AR, VR, but what differentiates is us leaving everything up to the robot to share the gospel. If the person hears it and accepts them into their heart, they hear it, but only God gives us grace, and only us, He knows who will be saved and who will not be saved. And we confess with our mouth and accept in our heart, and that's how we receive salvation. But in terms of how that interaction happens, I think that's why God has given us this ability to heal, and we're the spiritual doctors. So not being dependent on the robots, but be able to depend on the prayer and be able to discern the person's spiritual state. I think that is something that God has given to, unique thing that God has given to us. And if robots shares the gospel, that's in a less complicated form, less sophisticated form. It's like I share this Pulpit MP3 with someone. So, and then that someone listens to the tape or tape 10 years ago, but MP3. And really at that time, it wasn't that that person, it may be the really right time schedule for them to listen to the word of God and accept in their heart. Only God knows the salvation. So robot can do it, but that's another form, another MP3 that we share, or another link we share, or YouTube link we share with another soul. But as we're spiritual doctors, and when Chanyeong was going through the Roomba, and today we didn't go through AR and VR, but Roomba, how it could be utilized with the people who are going through spiritual problems. One thing Pastor Yu mentioned in the past is help them create a room, help them see their actions and their ability to what they're doing in the room, to see to give them diagnosis, to give them a reality, spiritual reality check for them. So Roomba could be used towards that. And in terms of AR and VR, I thought about, hey, why don't evangelists utilize this and be able to tell persons emotions, what they're going through? It'll be nice, it'll be helpful, but we really have to be careful that not to become another GPS. Because I don't know about you guys, but I became too dependent on a GPS. It's just, even if it's just 5 miles that I'm going through, I always check it, just to see if there's like a faster route. And then I could just easily memorize a route, but I became too dependent on GPS sometimes. So just like that, when even giving the spiritual diagnosis to a person, if you go to Busan Healing Center, if you're a spiritual summit, you'll be able to see everything. So even by person, the spiritual summits, be able to tell everything in your life's pattern. So for example, this 권사님 in Busan, she, because she's a person of the prayer, and she's able to tell the person's spiritual state just by like tapping on someone's someone had like really like a stiff like their chest, and then she was just tapping, and then she was just casually just said, oh, why you're so stubborn, and then she just like tapped her a few times, and like just like that, we like, as long as we don't become too dependent on being able to tell someone else's spiritual state on just AR, VR, or robotics, it could be utilized. So it really goes back to, are we going to be used by the machine, or can we utilize it? So if you are personal, so the only difference that differentiates us with robotics is really that the prayer. And if you've ever prayed for someone and you've realized the doors opening up, and that person opening up their hearts to accept Christ, then you'll see how what prayer is, what spiritual reality is. So I would be cautious to giving like AR, too dependent AR, VR to remnant, but really have that discernment, because discernment, that's what I wanted to say. And also AR, VR, I hope I'm not going too strong. So I thought about how do I help remnant memorize a Bible verse? So I thought about, hey, what if I use AR and VR in these circumstances to help them visualize, let's say, John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So if this is hard for a remnant, can I use AR and VR to help them memorize a verse? Maybe in certain situations, if the remnant is going through really, if the remnant just became a new believer, and all these different things already wired into their brain, then it will be helpful in the beginning. But then I think I would limit that to very young remnant using those technologies, but rather be able to imagine things and be able to pray when they are young. Just like Crosby's grandmother read Crosby Bible verses, and she really gave her like the feeling of the flower, the feeling of the water. So she was able to memorize, Crosby was able to memorize almost all the Bible books. And so that's how she was able to recreate that into hymns. So what I meant by, it could be like all these like Roomba analytics, like using that analytics to person to see what kind of spiritual state they're in, think it'll be very, very useful. And also, I think if the adult who's already been wired with so many different things in their brain, then the AR and VR will be very, very helpful. With very young remnants, I think reading the Bible verse will give them a much more better imagination, just literacy, and their spirituality with the Lord through the Word of God is much greater than this. And also, I thought about maybe robotics is going to advance, and I think it'll be nice if we could build it'll cut costs for church building. So church construction process, if it adopts robotics, it'll cut the cost, and all we could focus is buying the land. And also, I think the transportation Eddie mentioned, if that's the case, then if we could, that used to take us like 3 hours to get to like bigger lands to like RUTC, then if it takes us like 30 minutes to get there with robotics, then it'll be awesome. Like all we have to focus on is getting that land through drone or whatever analytics that's out there, and utilizing that robots to just build cost-efficient buildings and just everything. And so yeah, I think I went too far from what DK mentioned about salvation. Is that a manipulation? It's not manipulation. It's also utilizing another evangelism tool. We just don't, if we pray, God will allow us to utilize web URL or the robotics. The more people could hear, the better. So if it could be deployed to a third world with another church disciple who's been trained in RU, that'll be amazing. If everybody could hear the ends of the earth, that would be awesome.
So I totally agree with what Jay said. And to answer DK's question, I think, like as Jay mentioned with the MP3, I think it's not really the content or the channel that is important. I think it's the spiritual state of the person who made it, like either the content or the distribution channel, that is really important. And that's what changes it. And as Jay mentioned, it's God who gives salvation. So I think I really hope and pray one day, I think that this is the reason why we're doing this, I guess. One day I really hope that there's a remnant who realizes the importance or the flow of robots, and also understands psychology, like Chanyoung, who can really create a robot and in with the mindset of evangelism, and really make a business and really start using those another channel that arises, such as robotic evangelism robot or something, like psychology counseling robot to evangelize. And if YBAWM, we have YBAWM Ventures, I think that's why the reason why we have YBAWM Ventures is to really invest in remnant businesses that exist for the purpose of evangelism, such as this counseling robot. So I just really hope and pray one day that arises, and as YBAWM we can help that.
Yeah, and to keep in mind, this robot, it's not really going to be just like an MP3 where it goes through a script. With AI and with data and human psychology, this robot is going to be able to give accurate answers according to Bible scriptures. It's going to know exactly what to tell you in order to make you feel a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where it goes into the question of, well, is it really spirituality, or is it just data manipulation through understanding of psychology and understanding of Bible scripture? And so that's, and I think you're right. I think as long as the person who takes on that venture really holds on to the gospel and designs the robot in a way to not be manipulative, but to be more, it's hard to say spiritual because it's a robot, but if there is some way that you can do that, I think that's what we should try to go for as far as recreating.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions for Chanyoung or anything to share? Final words? All right, if not, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for, let's give a round of applause to Chanyoung. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, Ellie.
Bye.
Bye, Ellie.